different than everything else that's out there, and we really don't view others as competition. What we're doing, we view as complementary to what the video game industry is doing. It's such an exciting time to be in the industry, to be a fan of the industry, and we are fans of the video game industry. And you know, if there's something that you've seen here today that might be of interest, or maybe you're a developer who wants to make some games for us, maybe you want to place a pre-order, please go to intellivision.com. We want to hear from you.
E aí, gurizada?
Thank you, Tommy, for that look at Intellivision. Guys,
Galera, quem puder compartilha aí.
He started the presentation with,
Tamo de
this
volta.
isn't like what you've seen before at E3, right? We're doing something different. We're going in a different direction. What did you think of that?
Yeah, so, you know, I've been saying this a lot. I've always been a fan of the offbeat, the different. I always seek that experience out no matter what game I play. And I would say that this definitely, like, checked those boxes for me. You know, I own
Tamo de volta, obrigado a todos aí que voltou.
ColecoVision, you know, like I had those as a kid. My uncle would bring them in and we'll play games together. It was always a fun time. It was a Smurfs game that I could never finish. It was like the bane of my existence.
This
but
is
like,
your second chance.
yeah,
you're gonna
maybe I'll
get
get another
around.
opportunity of doing it. But I do like the idea behind it, and I also like too, like, there's an opportunity here even for independent developers to like get involved and make something super unique.
Bora, galera.
Is unconventional in comparison to what you see out there.
Comendo amendoim aqui, alguém quer amendoim? Amendoim salgado.
So all I heard was Earthworm Jim, and I was just Earthworm.
Ô, bicho, aí sim, top, hein? Salve, Mari. Galera, obrigado a todos que voltou. Spama like aí no YouTube. Valeu, Nancy, valeu, Sérgio, valeu, Rompe. Salve, Sávio, salve, Félix. Júnior Fernandes, boa tarde, Júnior. Leila Games, salve, Josimar, salve, King.
You could be like, hey, this is really simple.
Very true.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it looks like a phone, but it's kind of like a 2001 iPod. But you know what I mean?
Não entendi, Jonathan.
Right? Yeah. And I
Salve, Manucas. Vamos ver o que tem pra nós. Vamos ver, já, galera.
Games are also very accessible as well. So I think that this is something I could play with my parents. All I can think of is Mario Kart. My dad tried to play Wario, and you know that was a slower character, and he was it was a struggle. It was a struggle.
Yeah, I understand.
Maybe he could do better with the Amico. So for me, what stood out was definitely Earthworm Jim.
Deixa eu ver como é que tá o áudio aqui.
Yeah, that's their whole thing with it, right? And again, I like the idea that they're presenting something different at the end there. Tommy talking about the fact that we don't look at it as competition because they're clearly in a different market, right? It reminds me how I talk about
Bora. 47 likes no YouTube também. Quando é a Rockstar? Pô, bicho. 2h15, ô King. Já. Salve, Renegado. Salve, Jack. Salve, Marcos. Salve, Noob. Salve, Fernando. Já, galera. Já. Falta 15 minutos, mano. 15, velho.
That was really cool.
Ô, bicho, esse amendoim aqui, mano, acho que tá sem sal, hein? Aí, Silva, salve, R.
Well, I mean, they were definitely on purpose giving us very many callbacks to the Wii.
Yeah.
When I saw the little girl bowling, I was like, all right, I know what I'm getting.
I also like the price points they set for a lot of their games, very cheap. I think it was like $10 for downloadable. I think it was like $15 for physical or $20 for physical, which, you know that they're going to be coming in pretty cheap. But a lot of these things always boil down to that input, right? Like, and in this case, the controller is the appeal for this. I quite like it. We live in an age now, especially
Vou compartilhar aqui a live, galera, no grupo.
Where let's be real. Like,
falta 15 minutos, vamos ver a galera chegar.
That's unrivaled. Like, we need more couch co-op games. Look, I love online. I love online, but more couch co-op. I'm all about it in television. Thank you so much.
Ainda bem que vai dar pra assistir a transmissão, pois vou sair 1h50. Aí sim, Davi.
Moving forward as well.
Yeah. I love the idea too of that if you are the top in your country or whatever, at the end of the month they send you a certificate to print.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like very Twin Galaxies type vibe. I like that a lot. Yeah.
But yeah, cornhole. They make a cornhole game, so that's all we.
That's all you need. Cornhole, baby.
Deixar o like aqui. E aí, galera, como é que vocês estão? Pensamento positivo, galera. Bora bater 100 likes aí, galera, ó. Pensamento positivo. Pensamentos bons atraem coisas boas. Tá? Não...
We wouldn't be where we are today without the developments
Vamos...
of those early years. Here's a look
Vamos torcer, mano.
It is absolutely no wonder that E3 continued to live on after its very first show. The show was massive. There was a surprise console launch. You could get a Killer Instinct character tattoo while you played Game Boy. You could try out not one, but 3 VR headsets. And this is all in 1995. So let's take a look through a sometimes 4x3 lens at what the first ever E3 was like.
A capa aqui pra mim não atualizou.
1995, over 55,000 industry, retailer, and press attended the debut Electronics Entertainment Expo at the Los Angeles Convention Center.
Pensamento positivo, atrai coisas boas.
Walk up and play, especially at the Atari Jaguar.
Pai, que faz uma tradução simultânea aí do...
Tradução?
Já, rapaz. A hora que a Rockstar entrar, o inglês aqui já baixa, rapaz.
Or you could meet Rayman and try out his new game. This was one of the first times you could get your hands on the game that would eventually become a 45-game series. There's tons to check out at this booth, including Primal Rage, a violent dinosaur fighting game, White Men Can't Jump, a basketball game based on the movie, and my personal favorite, VLM, or Virtual Light Machine. Just walking around the floors, you'll come across Mortal Kombat 3 characters putting on a stage fight that spills into the audience. You could grab a photo with Beavis and Butthead or a Klingon, ride Judge Dredd's motorcycle, or even check out the Batmobile from Batman Forever. And of course, there was no shortage of games that you would stumble upon that are worth playing, like the legendary RPG Chrono Trigger, Earthworm Jim 2, Resident Evil, Ridge Racer, and unique games like Street Fighter the Movie The Game, and a port of the Aerosmith game.
85 likes.
There were also plenty of sports games and industry that would explode in popularity. Games like NBA Jam Tournament Edition, NFL Quarterback Club 96, and FIFA Soccer 96, which is only the 3rd FIFA game in the now famous series. The press conferences lived up to their name.
Eu aposto que eles não vão falar nada demais.
Podiums presenting slideshows. The slides consisted mostly of goals, stats, and advertising strategies, but there were hints of the future in their presentations.
Side-scrolling games, for all the fun and success they brought us, will ultimately give way to newer, more complex genres.
And looks at the industry, then a $5 billion industry that is now an over 150.
Será que vai vir? O que será que vai vir da Rockstar? Rapaz, não sei ainda, galera. Na verdade, tem uns murmurinhos aí, mas ninguém sabe a verdade. Uns falam que vai vir, outros falam que não vai vir nada. 100 likes agora. Cara, eu vejo as notícias, mas eu tenho que ver com meus próprios olhos. Então, não começou ainda, vamos ver o que vai ser. Faz uma dublagem divertida aí, Mike. Aí sim. Salve o Pierre, salve bom.
And Sega even had the first, and it's available now with the surprise announcement.
Pô, galera, meu inglês agora uma hora dessa ele ainda não tá bem, mano. O like número 100 foi meu, aí sim, jogo limpo, top.
Then they dropped the price and the new tagline.
Sega Saturn is not only here now, it's out there.
For Sony's presentation, it might
Sony, a apresentação da Sony.
Keanu Reeves at E3 2019. He made his actual first appearance as a key visual in Sony's
Gostaram, galera?
Sizzle in 1995. And this very 90s sizzle was pretty
Buddy 2 confia aí sim.
Until that point, Sony was still widely known as a tech company and hadn't released the PlayStation yet, at least not in the US. We were seeing the birth of a major gaming publisher and system through cheeky slides and clip art. But then came one of the most
Nossa, o Play 1, mano.
E3 history. After Sega had
meu inglês tá meio menos, mano.
Price of $399, the Sony Computer Entertainment president came up to the stage and simply said,
Midnight Club ou Bully. Ó, Midnight Club é top, hein, mano. Vai concorrer com o Forza 5, né?
3DO also had a press conference showing their successful 1994.
Não tô entendendo nada, mas tô aqui. Obrigado, Félix. Estamos aqui na ansiedade, mano. Mike, tô feliz. Cheguei a 221 barras. Oh, aí sim, mano.
They also showed quite a few next-gen visual demos of what their planned upcoming console, the M2, could potentially
Vai ter jogo da esporte do 2K. É, talvez tenha também, né, mano? Galera, relaxa. A gente só vai descobrir se assistir. Eu sei que tem muitas, né? Muitas possibilidades, então. Lanoid, confia. Oh, God. Vocês estão falando todos os jogos aí, menos Menos uma atualização para Red Dead, mano. Ô, bicho.
Also had Earthbound, which was the origin of NES, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, and Nintendo.
Falta 10 minutos, galera. E o relógio tá contando, rapaz.
Also on display close by was the
Quando vai vir a atualização pro Red Dead? Sherry? Cara, eu acredito que dia 6, Sherry. 6 de julho.
A look at what was, what could have been, and what came to be.
Game.
At the first E3 in 1995, we wound up showing off an early version of the very first Unreal game. A lot of people
Vou dar um de Alonso
the
agora.
Unreal Engine don't necessarily know that there's a game that actually launched everything behind all of it.
Remasterização
And,
da
I remember being there with
remasterização.
Mark Crane, and he yells out, Miyamoto's checking out Unreal. Shigeru
Bom, tá
Miyamoto,
chegando.
my
Vamos ver
hero,
quem que tá
my-
certo aí,
my
quem que tá
idol,
errado.
who's made so many games that have just fascinated me throughout my entire life, through my childhood. And I remember going
Não
over
esquece
there,
do amigo gaúcho, aí
and
sim,
giving
sim,
him a
sim.
demo of the game and trying to show him
Quero
why
saber
this
dos
game's
outros
unique,
propriedades.
weapons that can
Vamos
charge,
ver, galera, já já.
players that can dodge and alter hip fires, and enemy AI that can track you down no matter where you were. And he was very stoic, you know, but I hope that I impressed him. And yeah, I was still shaking for like an hour after that.
First E3,
Wow.
1995.
1995 fight. Aí, ó.
You know what I mean? Killed the Saturn in its tracks.
Isso aí, galera.
So that's where I want to start. 1995, mid-90s. We're talking about video game consoles.
Salve, véi. Salve, Josimar.
Were you a Sega kid or a Nintendo?
Cauã, o Red Dead 3. Aí sim, mano. Aí é pensar positivo, hein?
Sorry.
Gustavo Figueiredo, salve,
here's the thing,
Gustavo.
My mother bought a Super Nintendo for my brother.
Sure.
But she was like, well, I can't have them sharing.
Sidney
it because we're
Nascimento,
just gonna
148
argue.
pessoas
Yeah,
enganadas.
fine.
Aí sim, Sidney.
So then, you know, she ended up telling my father, hey, you got to go get him a Sega Genesis. She
Minha
took the
intuição
credit
vai
for it,
vir
by the way,
surpresa.
boss mom. Shout out to
Salve,
you, Mom.
Gerardo. Não sei, galera.
And yeah, and then, you know, I had the Sega Genesis, but the only game I had for like the longest time
Bom,
was
se não tiver
Sonic
nada, já deu pra
Pinball.
dar umas risadas, é, mano.
Spinball,
So
yeah, yeah.
and that was like one of my favorite Sonic games.
Piringa, já pensou Red Dead 3? Pô, bicho,
Yeah, I
aí
was a Sega Master.
é zerar a vida, né, mano?
I was walking through the
136
store,
like,
saw
galera.
some
Quem
games
puder,
that
deixa
I
like
wanted that, and my mom
pra
did
ajudar o
the
canal.
research, and I've been
Salve,
trying-
Alan.
She got me what I wanted.
Sem
And I
expectativas,
was a
sem
Sega
decepções.
kid,
Aí
ride
sim
or
é
die
linha.
the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Through the Saturn. I bought a Saturn.
I had a Saturn too.
Salve, Luiz.
Clockwork Knight, by the way.
Vai sair a data de
One of the
GTA
most
V pra nova
underrated
geração.
platformer games ever. Clockwork
Talvez algum
Knight,
jogo.
so
Aí
good.
sim, André.
Jackie, I feel like I don't need that.
É, galera, se sair alguma coisa mesmo, eu acredito que eles vão falar de GTA. Não tem como não falar de GTA, né?
Was a Super Nintendo, and it is one of the most vivid memories of my life, actually. I remember my dad came in with the box, and my brother and I were chasing after him. We're like, what is this? What is this? And it was this little TV like this big, and he was trying to get it all
O
plugged
passe
in.
vem
My brother
antes do
was
dia da
sitting behind this,
independência, só quero.
gray screen, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And then Super Mario
A
World
independência é
popped up,
4 de
and
julho, né?
each other, and we just
Eu acredito que vem dia 6, né?
And little did they
Cristiano.
know that they were going to start a full-blown video game obsession.
Cadeirinha da Razer, né?
With Sega, okay? I would go to my neighbors and we would play NBA.
Chega, galera.
We'd be like,
Comi muito amendoim
"Who's
já.
on fire?" Oh
Love
my
that
gosh,
game.
I loved it. And actually, my brother and I got a Dreamcast as well, but we were mainly a Nintendo family.
Well,
for
yeah, the
sure.
only reason I said I think I know is because you have
Yes.
an SNES game in front of you.
Actually, I did bring Chrono Trigger. I thought we were gonna be talking about our favorite games from the 90s, and obviously, like this one, it's near and dear to my heart. My brother and I played it repeatedly.
Sure.
And Robo's theme.
Red Dead 3 tá longe. E quando sair, acredito que será uma nova era. Vixe Maria, bem nova.
Or can you? And I just haven't figured that out. But anyway,
Sure.
yeah, this
GTA
story
chega em
just always
novembro,
resonated with
chefe.
me so much.
Mas
I was
provavelmente
I played,
adiado.
like, Secret of Mana and Terra Enigma.
É, tem esse detalhe também, né? As empresas hoje em dia tá nisso.
Heavy
É que assim, até novembro, Caio, alguma outra empresa pode anunciar alguma coisa.
My brother and I
E aí eles metem essa de adiar pra não gerar concorrência. Querendo ou não, gera concorrência.
And it was like, please tell my family that I shouldn't have gone out searching for treasure and I abandoned
Mike, as
them.
4
And my
barras de
brother
ouro que
and I
eles
were
deram pra
crying,
quem
you
terminou
know,
os 80 níveis do
I
último
do
passe,
think these games
para
made me
compensar os
the person
últimos
that I
20
am
níveis
today and made my
que não
brother
tiveram.
the person that he was. I'm sorry,
Será,
I'm getting
mano?
emotional, but I think we can all say that games have had a profound effect on our life. And
100%.
these
Oh, yeah.
games
Se sair o
from the
GTA
90s,
hoje,
don't
a
sleep
internet
on them,
para.
people. Don't sleep on
Para.
them. They got really, really amazing
Só vai
content.
aparecer um teaser assim, só a logo. GTA 6 piscando assim e apaga. Vup.
I feel like I
Só isso aí já
like,
trava
I've
tudo,
never
mano, na
actually
internet.
held a Chrono Trigger box.
I know. It's
I saw one
Soldado
in
mata, sabe,
Tokyo,
mano?
in Akihabara. I walked around for a little bit and I saw one there and I asked the guy if I can grab it. He looked at me, said I was crazy, and then I left being, you know, in tears. But this is like a piece of history.
Yeah.
This is This is super cool.
Greg,
Está com boas intenções, ele só comendo amendoim. É, Naldinho. Amendoim é o famoso Viagra de pobre.
I'm not touching that. I'm not ending up in live stream fails.
Oh my god, I love it. But I feel like you can just feel the energy like coming off of the game. You know
and it was one of the greatest RPGs
I know.
ever.
Hunter, realmente é impossível ver o Red Dead 3. Sim, realmente é, né, mano? Pô, bicho.
He's like top 5, I think.
Oh, easily in the top.
GTA San Andreas vai se...
I want to say real quick
E
that
3
this is a
remake.
reformed Sega kid speaking. Like, video games made me who I am today, obviously. It's my entire life, my entire career, my entire passion.
Yeah.
But, like, I always look so longingly at people who...
Galera, 153 likes. Falta 4 minutos, velho. 4 e contando. 4 minutos e contando, meu Deus.
But, like, I was a dumb kid. No one else liked video games as much as I did. So I was, like, just playing licensed stuff all the time. Which got me, like, Castle of Illusion, Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion, which was great. But it was also, like, the Jurassic Park game and all these other independent
Streets of Rage, baby.
Dude, I love Streets of Rage.
A Rockstar só anunciou o GTA 4 na E3.
Battletoads versus Double Dragon, Sega Genesis. That game was freaking impossible. But oh man, and Lion King, by the way.
Na sua opinião, quais dessas pistolas são boas? Revólver da Marinha ou pistola Mauser?
Oh, okay, well he's actually my friend.
Pistola, mano.
This is what happens when I can't sit between them.
Darn it, son.
As pistola Mauser é melhor. Salve, Isaac.
Ladies and gentlemen, of course, what are your favorite 90s games? Let us know with the hashtag E3 2021 so we can get you up on screen. But still to come here on the E3 stage, we've got our indie showcase, Capcom.
Antônio Alves queria o remake do Red Dead 1. Eu também, mano. Isso aí seria top. Pô, bicho. Mas tem que vir com uma DLC, um Dead Nightmare. A DLC de zumbi. É agora, galera. Se preparem. Spama like, galera. Ô, bicho. ...171 likes. Tamo bem, leque. A dor na barriga tá dando, galera. Acho que eu tenho que ir no banheiro, pô, bicho. Toda atualização é isso, né, galera? Ai, galera. O Mike é fraco demais, rapaz.
篝火营地是中国领先的游戏媒体，创立于2018年，致力于为全世界的中文游戏玩家提供
dedicado aos profissionais e os chineses gamer.
篝火营地立足于中国，与多家国际一流游戏媒体同行达成正式内容合作关系，源源不断地将最新鲜的游戏资讯第一时间带给全球中文游戏玩家。自成立以来，篝火营地在全网
GTA 7 oh god
超过5亿，服务了数百万的读者和玩家。我们的愿景是做游戏文化传播者。您可以在全球各大手机应用市场下载篝火营地 APP， 或者访问3w.gamebonfire.com 来加入游戏传播者的行列。
Aí sim, cara. Qual escopeta é melhor? Paulinho, a escopeta cano duplo e a escopeta semi-automática. As duas melhores hoje em dia, mano. Traduz aí, mano. Chinês falando aí azeda, mano.
As a part of Play for All, GameSpot will be bringing you the latest gaming news and announcements.
Falta minuto, galera, aqui, minuto.
The biggest press conferences and lots more. Play for All is our yearly online event that combines
the
excitement and announcements of E3 with charity live streams the following week with lots of special guests
Red Dead ali, ó.
help us raise money for able gamers.
Able
Join
gamers.
us in June for E3 and Play for All on GameSpot.com, YouTube.com/GameSpot, Twitch.tv/GameSpot, and as a part of E3's official broadcast. See you then.
I remember this one time I was at E3 on
Tira a borda.
sitting there for lunch.
A borda tá atrapalhando, chefe?
And then we talk business, then we start talking games. I remember talking about Assassin's Creed, and I was saying how I snuck in the room, I climbed on the wall, then I jumped down, I took the knife, and I stabbed the person in the back. I looked over to my left,
183 like. Tamo quase.
They were talking, then they stopped listening like, oh my God, what is he talking about? He just talking about killing somebody? I said, it's a video game. They're like, oh, okay. I was like, man, these people thought I killed somebody. They thought I was a hitman. I was like, oh, this is too funny.
Thanks to our sponsors at DoorDash. Get more from your neighborhood, from restaurants and convenience to grocery and corner stores. All right, folks. Well, we are back here at E3 2021. And, you know, here's the truth, guys. Sometimes the most difficult discussions, are the ones that you need to have the most. And with the gaming community already being such a diverse place, it's time for the creative space to reflect that. So here's take two with an important discussion on the necessity of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the corporate responsibility to honor those things.
Oh my looking god. Take two. Vamos ver, galera.
Hello, I'm Alan Lewis, Vice President of Corporate Communications and Public Affairs for Take-Two Interactive. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to Virtual E3 2021. Take-Two, like many organizations, is deeply committed to and actively involved in numerous initiatives to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion within our society and industry. Affecting meaningful, sustainable change is a continuous process, and there is no one solution that can achieve that goal. We believe that to enact change, especially for those in underserved and underrepresented communities, there needs to be a continuum of activism and engagement with educational
Vai rolar uma
programs
mensagem
serving
sobre
as its
igualdade
core
e
foundation.
diversidade.
Beginning
Aí
with
sim,
children in
Erdel.
elementary school, we have the ability to light a spark of
Agora
creativity,
Rockstar coloca
intellectual
propriedades.
curiosity, and
Aí
wonder
sim.
that can last a lifetime. Continuing through middle and high school, we can support and nurture students during their formative years and increase the depth of their skills that can provide a pathway to attending one of the 400 plus colleges
Mike,
and
seu Chroma está
universities
100%
within
melhor
the
do que o
United States
vice-presidente da
that offer
Take-Two.
degrees in game design. Providing opportunities to attend these academic institutions, including need-based
Acho que esse
financial
Chroma deles é
support,
proposital,
is
mano.
also a critical component to helping end
198
generational
likes.
cycles of inequality. And while pursuing their creative and technical degrees, students can learn firsthand from industry leaders that share their experience, acumen, and passion through one-on-one mentoring and internships at our organization. Together, if our industry can execute this continuum, we will have invested meaningfully in the lives of the youth from these communities for more than a decade.
Não, legenda em português não
before they
tem, eu já
begin their
procurei.
professional journey. Diversity and inclusion make us a better industry for today and, most importantly, for tomorrow. It allows us to make better entertainment experiences that are authentic, culturally relevant, and reflective of the audiences that enjoy them. Today, we have brought together a few of our important partners who will share their organization's mission and role in this endeavor, as well as their insights on how we as an industry can continue to take these
Vai ter legenda em português mais tarde. Aí sim.
We hope that you find their work as inspiring as we do. It is now my pleasure to turn things over to my colleague, Tony Lagans, Director of Diversity and Inclusion for 2K, who will be the moderator.
Eles estão falando de igualdade e diversidade entre as indústrias e os
games. It's my pleasure to be your moderator for today's session. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce my esteemed panelists today. We're going to start off with Jim Huntley. Jim Huntley is currently the professor and head of marketing at USC. Jim is a faculty advisor, and he's an executive producer for USC Games Expo and a co-founding partner of PAC UK.
Tem que mudar a configuração?
Next we have
Não, Andresa, só tem essa legenda aqui só.
Is the president of Games for Change, which is a nonprofit that empowers game creators and social innovators to drive real-world impact through games and immersive media. Next to Susanna, we have Gordon Bellamy. Gordon is a professor of practice of cinematographic arts at USC. He is also the head of USC Bridge Incubator, which is a program that helps to cultivate the next generation of leaders in the video game industry. And last, next to Gordon, we have Layla Shabir. Layla is the founder of Girls Make Games, which offers a series of summer camps, workshops, and game jams designed to inspire the next generation of designers, creators, and engineers. Welcome to all of you, great panelists, and thank you so much for joining our important discussion today. Now, I'd like to dive right in here. And Jim, I'm going to start with you. In Alan's opening, he mentioned something that was so important, and it was really just talking about the increasing role that diversity, equity, and inclusion it is playing in the video game industry today. So before we get into the big concepts that we're talking about here, let's just break some things down for our viewers. Jim, can you help us understand and talk about equity and diversity and why it's so important in the conversation?
Calma aí, galera. Deixa eu ver um negócio aqui.
Papo, com pessoas que outra, como por exemplo a da Private Division, ou pessoas que têm projetos de inclusão dentro dos videogames, né? Então,
Now, I'd like to dive right in here. And Jim, I'm going to start with you. In Alan's opening, he mentioned something that was so important, and it was really just talking about the
Galera, tem uma live no YouTube. O pessoal tá traduzindo, mas é da IGN, mano. Eu não sei se dá BO, galera. Foda que o YouTube, a qualidade é bem ruim, galera. E aí?
That whole aspect and just getting people in the right mindset to understand what's available for them as majors in this industry.
Salve, Alencar. Não falaram nada ainda.
Absolutely. So a lot of what we've been focusing on from
Deixa aí mesmo.
Perspective is making sure that students of color, Black and Indigenous students in particular, because they have the least amount of representation within our industry out of all the various demographic groups.
Então, galera, aqui é direto da E3, né, mano? Meu Deus, muita conversa.
I can't remember to attribute to. There's a phrase that he used that I remember saying, the inequities of our past paid dividends into the future.
Não, vamos deixar aqui mesmo.
That sticks with me because the reality is if you don't have a great opportunity or access to computer science labs and specialized education in grade school and high school and junior high school, the odds of you having a great portfolio piece when it comes time to apply to a program like ours puts you at a deficit. And if that deficit keeps rolling on into the future, generation after generation, the gap between the ability to get into some of these slots in
Souza, salve, mano, salve, Luiz.
and not being able to get them
Eles conversam muito.
So we need to do a better job as a society, and we are willing to do our
Calma, gurizada, 221 likes, tamo bem.
How do we get students some opportunity
Já tô chateado, é sério, King? Pô, calma, gurizada.
Because when I, as a Black man, get in front of a small group of grade school students, and I say I work in the video game industry, you can see the eyes just their minds explode because they've never seen anyone like me and the videos they see on YouTube or other visitors to their classes, to their seminars. So it's important to show that we have a presence here, but it's also important to make sure that the students who look like us, who are 20 years, 30 years, 40 years behind us, also have the opportunities that we didn't in some cases to get a job in this industry.
Yes, thank you so much for your insights. So important there. Susanna, that really kind of speaks to a lot of the great work that you're doing in helping to reach this underserved.
Tá acabando, eles já falaram com 3.
Sure. So, our mission, as you said earlier, is to empower
Parece aula.
and
Aí sim,
social
Marcos.
innovators, right? To use games for social change. And we see our work with younger people as really inspiring the next generation, right? And so just what Jim was saying, like we're going as young as 6th grade, sometimes 5th grade. But
Let's bora, salve, mano. Você é 10, que Deus te abençoe, valeu, Let's. Vai ser só uma reunião com o pessoal dos estúdios, eu acho. É sério isso, mano? Vai fazer reunião em outro lugar, né, mano? Aqui não, mano. Bicho. É sério isso, galera? Maestro, Mike, bora fazer aquela pizza braba, aí sim, mano. Achei que a E3 era sobre jogo, pô, bacanas.
We've reached over 30,000 young people in middle and high school. And we not only give them an opportunity.
A única E3 que valeu a pena foi do Xbox, sim, a do Xbox eu assisti, realmente. A do Xbox foi a que menos teve conversa, mano. Foi só jogo, um por cima do outro, os caras mostrando.
Right from the start, we want to empower them to think about this really important medium, not only as something they love to do, but they actually can make.
Reunião aberta é osso, hein? Ixi, oh my looking like. Cara, é esquisito, hein? Eles estão falando sobre como incluir novas pessoas e dar mais oportunidades dentro da indústria de games. Usar os games para mudança social.
And part of our program, an important part of it, is this idea of mentoring and mentoring from near peers and also from people from the community. So
já falaram que você parece o Ed Gama.
In the people that are coming to speak to them. So when we're in Los Angeles, for example, we can reach out to US.
Nem sei quem que é esse, chefe. 235 likes. Forza 5 tá lindo. Não, Forza 5 tá lindo. Eu quero jogar Forza e Avatar. Alguns vão estar na Game Pass, né?
And I can tell you that students are coming back year on year, and we're seeing them use this program as like their college essay.
Eles estão falando sobre um projeto de criação de games com crianças carentes em escolas de baixa renda. Tá, Falcão, o que é isso? Isso aqui é uma conferência, mano, da E3, Take-Two, dona da Rockstar, mano.
And so that's that role and what we hope to inspire. I love what you said there, Suzanne. There's so many little nuggets that you just pulled out there. The different
Gui Souls, opa, aí sim, vem por Forza. Forza é top, mano.
Pathways there are in the gaming industry. Just the activity that you can have in terms of having mentorship and role models and representation, and just, having good gamers out there. So there's so many things that you talked about that I want to hit on. Let's just pull Layla into this conversation and just talk about the idea of mentorship and representation.
Você conhece esse Ed Gama, ou André? Não sei quem é não, mano. Nada a ver com Ed Gama.
How does that help to increase the representation and the mentorship aspects that we've talked about?
Thanks so much for having me. I was on
Thanks so much. Já chega a minha vez de falar, viu, galera? Segura aí que eu tô na conferência também, ó.
Like Susanna said, I think it's really important to kind of pass that baton on, and I think we see
que eu tô tomando espaço ali, calma aí.
Having created a place that's, for girls.
Meu lugar aqui no cantinho.
A lot, why do you need a space that's just for girls or
já eu que vou falar ali, hein?
That are open to everyone. But I think it's just so important to create that space because, like Jim talked about, it's so important to see people who are like yourselves. For many of the girls that come to camp, this is their first time walking into a room full of girls who love video games. They've been so accustomed to kind of being the only girl on their robotics team, or the
na minha opinião,
went to a coding camp with their
eles poderiam fazer essas conferências deles em qualquer momento. E3 é para jogos. Mano, é azar,
hein? Common themes and stories, and I think it's important to kind of tie in not just the mentorship, but also the community. It's very important to walk into a room and feel like you're not an outsider, and the best way to do that is to show many more faces that look just like you.
Tá acabando, galera. Falta só mais 2 para falar ali, ó.
Just with the technical skills, but to feel like these are people that I'm gonna, kind of encounter in 10, 15 years, and we'll be like professionals, because right now we're just kids making games, but we'll be professionals in a few years.
Coloca sua cã em tela cheia.
For Girls Make Games, we're finally starting to see, these girls kind of make plans together to go to college, and this year, I would say, like the first
Calma, gurizada, segura, o Mike é top, valeu, Félix, manda eles ficar quieto, aí sim, King. Como, mano? Calma aí que eu vou ligar pra Rockstar, pera aí, tem alguma coisa errada aqui.
There's so many challenges that, people have to go through just to get everything right. You shouldn't have to
Hello, my friend.
Rely on luck so much. So if you look at the women who are now
entendi. Depois então, né? Agora é outra coisa. Tá. Deixa eu falar pra galera aqui então. Valeu. Ô, galera, falei com eles aqui, mano. Ele falou se vocês conhecem aquela carta Devagar e Sempre. Essa é a pegada, devagar e sempre. Então, galera, né?
Talking about what we're doing and how do we pass our students on from, we start as young as 8, getting them onto the programs and then passing them on to the student challenge and then on to USC and then finally on to the industry. I think that's basically the magic formula to solving the problem that we're talking about today.
Yes, thank you for hitting on that pipeline challenge and actually solution. You really clearly laid it out there for us. I really, really enjoy that. And something else you mentioned is just like really opening this world of gaming to new, diverse, a pool and a spectrum of gamers. And how do we create those real pathways back into the gaming industry?
Falaram o gamer ali, hein?
Entendi,
isso eu entendi.
Create value where value was not seen in places.
A Rockstar quer devagar.
Specifically for the gay gaming professionals. Can you talk about
Ou a gente quer muito rápido, a gente quer tudo de uma vez, né, velho? Ô, bicho.
Of what gaming professional looks like and how your company and your role really accomplishes that.
Não é culpa da Rockstar ter todo esse falatório assim. Não, sim, mano, tô ligado.
Which is focused on education, employment, expertise, and entrepreneurship. And the reason why is because alongside diversity and equity inclusion, there's a new word that's come up a lot, which is belonging. Yes. Right? A feeling of belonging, of being default. And I know that
Fake two, essa foi boa, hein, Euclides? Fake two é foda, hein, mano? Pô, a galera...
socioeconomic and sometimes social gymnastics before they get to be as good as they are.
A galera
before they get a chance to participate in this panel. Or
Mike, liga novamente, diz que teus inscritos mandou eles tudinho pra... Não, mano, eu posso perder meu canal, chefe.
Some of those mental gymnastics, socioeconomic gymnastics, social gymnastics that young women, people of color, indigenous people, neurodiverse people.
A culpa é minha, pô, fumante. É sério, mano.
To be as great as they are, you know, to belong, you know, in the space, and sort of hearing, you know, what Layla's speaking to of a cohort, right, that treats each other as default, and where are we going to go now together?
Bom, eu vou falar pra vocês que eu tô curioso pra ver o que o David Jones vai falar, mano. Ele é bem crítico, viu? Já tô até pensando aqui o que o David Jones vai falar. F pra Take-Two e vai colocar um monte de kkkkkkkkkkkk. Ele faz os vídeos dele agora assim, né? Cheio de kkk.
You know, making that dollar 15 cents before all of us.
Salve, Luan, vim pelo Games. Cheguei. Seja bem-vindo, mano.
You know, and with the support of corporations like Take-Two.
Boca de pelo, é, mano.
Is enabling us to move a generation forward.
Pior que boca de pelo não tem nenhum, rapaz, ali.
We have a scholars program in partnership with Take-Two. Some go to USC, many go on to participate in Games for Change, and many have been girls who made games. And that's where we find
esse chroma key deles está sofrido, hein? É. O microfone, o fone dele ali fica sumindo e aparecendo, ó.
Into employment, into being experts, right? Because that's the real challenge when you're trying to discover people. You don't want just to be entering. You want experts, right? And if things are going to really change, like this discussion, you need owners, right? Layla, owner. Susanna, owner. Jim, owner. All of you, owners of facets of your business.
Rockstar já falou alguma coisa? Não, Giovanni?
That is where we become
não, Giovanni, ainda não, mano. Até o Chrome é bugado. David Jones me baniu. É, o arquitetura, você falou, mano. Mas não foi ele não, mano. É alguém que trabalha ali pra ele, entendeu?
Right? Until you're doing the counting, nothing has changed, right? I don't need to ask how many young
prefiro ser grifado do que assistir isso. Calma, mano. Ô, bicho.
The gender balance of Games for Change. All of it, right? These sort of systemic changes, like that's
a galera é foda.
I think we all share. I think it's why we all made time today, right? I've been to every E3. I was a booth
tá entendendo tudo?
Started, and I'm still here, right? 25, 26 years later, haven't missed one yet. So I hope that someone
tô entendendo partes, mano.
And begins their path, right? And this is
faltou grana pro Chroma. Gastaram no GTA 6.
I appreciate that. Yes, exactly what you're saying. There's so much more that all of us.
Ele deu desabafo aí, rapaz, nojento.
Is really very important, Gordon. Thank you for bringing that
up. Aparecendo aula do online.
Lay this out there to all our panelists. What can corporations do to really set themselves up for success in the near future?
20 minutos de evento já é, mano.
New talent.
Passou voando, né, mano?
There that we need to capture to help us build better, more relevant, engaging video games. What can corporations do?
Deixa ela falar, rapaz. Se segura, nojento. Querendo tomar a voz ali da mulher, rapaz. Chama um hacker pra dar boot na reunião. Velho.
to be visible to young people, not just because they're buying, they're downloading the games off of off of Xbox or PlayStation, but
Pensei que ia ser tipo a live da Sony, mano.
And so Take-Two has been part of our challenge since the beginning, offering scholarships to our grand prize winners, and I can tell you that that's a motivator for kids to participate, not just because there's a scholarship at the end, but it's because Take-Two is part of it. Like, it made us cool. Right. And I think it's that relationship at that young of an age that
saí da aula online pra ver isso. Aqui adiantou nada, Loki? Pô, Loki, volta pra sua aula, chefe. E aí, galera, o cara saiu da aula online dele pra entrar aqui e pegou outra aula online, mano. Aí azeda. Velho. Pô, Loki, foi mal, mano.
Yes, I love that.
Vaticano, e aí, Michael, o que eu perdi, mano? Vou deixar que a galera responde. Ih, velho, não perdeu nada, mano. Só esse fone do cara sumindo aí, ó. Isso aí que você perdeu, ó.
Of black people, of women, of queer people, of indigenous people, neurodiverse people, a business goal.
Mike, coloca no mudo e vamos conversar sobre Desde com os inscritos. Que é melhor que esse vídeo aí. Vídeo aula.
Buy some NBA 2K, right? That's a business goal around which the business is aligned. And I feel as though if the expertise of women, black people, neurodiverse, other populations...
Essa é a última ou falta um ainda? Mimas, falta o cara falar ali, eu acho que falta o outro cara ali falar, mano. Eu acho que depois dele aí já era.
If there is more of this, right?
Olha lá, falta aquele ali, ó, o Nin. Camiseta azul.
Which are two different things. There's lots of exceptional people, right? Who are of value in spite of their circumstances. They're valuable, right? There's a difference between saying you're of value and that's a
Isso aí é o Bully 2?
in itself.
Anarquista,
I think that's the corporate, that's the real change, because it used to be, I mean, just real talk, it used to be about exceptionalism, right? And be like, oh, you're able to thrive under this duress, right? Isn't that cool? Versus...
Ricardo, chamei a bota no like. Aí sim, galera. Pelo menos like, galera. Deixa o like aí pra nós que... Pô, sou brasileiro, né, mano? Não desisto, então vamos até o fim agora, galera. Vocês estão comigo ou não? Meu almoço vai terminar. Pô, Cristiano, que pena, hein? Ismael, obrigado pelo like. 280 likes.
Right? There's value in that, right? I'm treated that way in some circles. If the same lens was put onto women, onto brown people, black people, queer people.
Tá bom, Bocudo. Chega, filho. Deixa pros outros um pouquinho, nojento. Só ele quer falar agora, rapaz. Boca de pelo, rapaz. Boca de mochila, né?
Right. And that just speaks to being deliberate with our diversity, inclusion, equity practices.
Yes.
Corporations really have to take that accountability and, like you said, do what's right in that spectrum, in that conversation.
Puxa, eu vou tomar água aqui, que é melhor.
And kind of recalibrating our minds to that. But like you guys have said, it takes time. It takes starting earlier.
Boca de bueira aí é foda, hein, ó.
I love that you just call that
Boca de
out.
caçapa, meu rei.
Things can corporations do that are just different than what we've been doing in the past, perhaps.
Falta um falar ainda, galera. Eu acho que aquela mulher de amarelo também falta. Calma lá, galera.
The looking at this challenge as a business challenge is key. That's what between the inspiration of the social justice marches from last summer and really talking to our chair, Danny Bilson, who said that, hey, if you were going to tackle this
Bruno.
Giant
Conferência é essa? Da Take-Two, chefe.
Business problem, what would you do? And that flipped the light switch on for me. Well, of course, like any business problem, what are my challenges? I've got gaps in my supply chain, if you will. So how do I fill those gaps in my supply chain? And really working your way backwards in a way where you're putting objectives, strategies, and tactics in place to achieve those goals from a business perspective. You're going to see outcome when it's not just, hey, here's a check and good luck with charity.
Meu chat da live da E3.
Here's a check. This is what we're hoping to see. Let's measure along the way and see if we're seeing progress.
Os caras todos dormindo ali no chat, galera. Pô,
in real time based on the data that you're getting back. That's where
as figurinhas, galera. A galera é foda, mano.
In a meaningful
Nossa, mano. Agora que eu vi, é realmente... Galera, 100 mil pessoas na live deles, mano. Olha o chat, a galera tá dormindo. A galera trola, mano. Pô, bicho. Mano do céu, velho. Chat somente com emotes, ó. Já deixaram com emotes só pra, né? Vamos mandar um emotezinho ali, guys. Segura. Vamos mandar um emotezinho ali, please. Deixa eu mandar o meu emote ali, tá doido? Uma pá de emote desse. Galera, bora mandar emote lá, galera. Não vai dar nem tempo de eu ver, mano. Pô, bicho. Cadê eu? Cadê eu? Já fui, mano, subi. Pô, ninguém me viu, mano. Já era, guys. Subiu. A galera não perdoa. 294 likes. E tem bastante gente, galera. Mais de 100 mil pessoas na live deles, ó, esperando alguma coisa da Take-Two. Gears make games.
So between the pie and the corporate responsibility, I feel like there's a lot that gets lost. Like, I think there's a big dichotomy between these are people that are doing good and these are people that are self-serving, but it doesn't work like that. We have to work together, and everyone does kind of go between what's good for me and what's good for everyone, you know, so.
Thank you for bringing that concept.
Isso, thank you. Bora pro próximo.
Codependency. We are all community members in this pipeline, and we have to be active, deliberate in our processes, in our systems, how we tackle this problem. Before we end this conversation, there's tons of questions that we have that we want to ask you. So I'm going to pause right now and give
Leonardo, falar de Desde agora?
Questionnaires a chance to
Ainda não,
ask
chefe.
their questions that are top of mind related to our conversation.
O próximo é tu, o próximo é eu. Agora eu tenho meu discurso.
So we're going to start it off.
Quem voltou?
Questions from our other video game industry experts here. We've got Carrie. She's an executive producer from Private Division. We also have Vanetta, who's a director of talent acquisition with Take-Two, and Nir, he's the head of mobile for Take-Two. So go ahead and fire it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. The first question is for Layla, but certainly open to having the rest of our panelists answer the question. But at the beginning of your career, did you ever imagine being a leader within an industry that is predominantly male-dominated? And what is your advice?
Anarquista, Mike tá animado para quais jogos que foram apresentados na E3? Boa pergunta. Cara, eu tô bem animado para jogar o Forza. Forza 5. É o Avatar e o... É Stalker que fala, galera? É Stalker 2, né? Esses foram os que mais me chamaram a atenção. E eu quero também ver a gameplay do BF, né? BF 2042, que eu acho que tá bem hardcore. Esses são os games, mano, que eu tô mais interessado aí. De resto, mano, vamos ficar com Red Dead mesmo.
Prepared me for, you know, hey, whatever I end up doing, there's going to be more boys or men than me. I think
BF vai ser muito bom. O BF ele vai ser focado no online, né, galera? Então, a galera que curte a história, né? Acho que vai dar ruim, né?
People, even your age, your geographic location, your, you know, educational
Stalker é Stalker mesmo, mano. Eu quero ver o Stalker. Nunca tinha visto, a hora que eu vi, mano, já gostei daquela pegada. Jogo sinistro. E tem o Stalker 1, mano. Eu vou dar uma olhada no Stalker 1 pra me ver.
Use a very selective hearing
Sérgio Batista, salve Sérgio. Essa E3 hoje tá parecendo reunião de escola. É, Nina. Teve um inscrito aqui que falou que ele saiu da aula dele, né? Online. E veio correndo aqui, né? Pra ver. Chegou aqui em outra aula online, mano. Já saiu fora também.
The way the world works is based on the world that we build, and we're continually building a new world. So it doesn't matter how things are done now. They're going to be
Mike,
done
contrata hack aí de aluguel.
as you grow up, and you can be part
Aí
of
sim, Jake, top, mano.
So those would be like my two pieces of advice for girls is to just pursue what
Ainda
you
estão
want
nessa
and,
enrolação, Sérgio, ainda estão.
develop selective hearing.
All right. My question is for Susanna, but also open to anyone else who would like to answer. And I think Gordon kind of hit it earlier when he said that, you know, most of us didn't have a lot of examples or opportunities. I'm in that boat. I didn't have any
Divisão
programs
privada.
and anyone telling me that I could do this, and definitely had to not necessarily an accident, but really had to work in a different way.
Salve, Legos.
Than most. So,
Vi um vídeo de um gringo
my
que
question,
falou que
Susanna,
vazou
for
a
you
data
is,
da atualização no
can you
Desde,
share an
6 de
example
julho.
of how your
É,
program
mano, eu
has
também postei esse
impacted
vídeo,
someone that
mano.
has participated, or, you know, a few people?
É dia 6 mesmo. Eu acho que é dia
So, as I
6.
said, our program is 6 years old in New York City. We're a bit younger in the other cities that we're
303
operating in,
likes,
and
tamo
there
bem.
are opportunities now.
Aula
for
online em
girls
inglês. É, Nicolas, é isso aí, mano.
can participate. But we saw in New York a very particularly strong cohort. We're actually in over 125 schools right now in New York City. And there are some rockstar teachers.
Novo jogo das reuniões, aí sim, hein?
Participate, their participants year on year on year. And that to me is certainly the beginning of getting this kind of program off the ground, and particularly in schools where
Galera, obrigado a galera que tá seguindo aí. Tamo junto.
So one, having the teachers
Vai sair alguma coisa? Felipe Costa, é o que a gente espera, mano. No final dessa reunião aqui, rapaz. Dessa ladainha, né? Diga-se de passagem. Stalker 1 tem os NPCs bugados. É, não, nunca vi, mano. Depois eu vou atrás pra ver.
Who won, I think she won the like our theme category the first time round when she participated as a sophomore. The junior year she won again, and by the senior year she was a grand prize winner in New York City. And I hear that she
Mike, tu viu Jurassic World 2? Ou não gosta desse tipo de jogo? Não, eu vi, mano. Tinha esquecido dele. Tinha esquecido. Sim, eu vi, mano. Eu vi. Tutorial como provocar ira de 100 mil pessoas. Deixa eu ver quantas pessoas tem. Tá com 100 mil ainda. Não, a galera tá esperando alguma coisa ainda. A galera tá esperando. Galera, quem tá assistindo essa conferência, tem muitas pessoas que trabalham com isso, né, mano? Então estão ali ainda, né? Até o último segundo, mano. Estão esperando. Tem 100 mil ainda, mano. Kleber, Kleber. Zoado, né, mano? A gente achou que ia ter mais alguma coisa, mas... Sabe, Alisson? Espero que não fique só nessa conversa fiada. Também espero, mano. Gustavo, voltei, perdi alguma coisa? Não, mano. Perdi a aula de inglês, né? Eu vou sair daqui fluente, rapaz. Vocês vão ver na próxima live como é que eu vou estar. A maioria de que está lá é desenvolvedor do 5M. Opa, agora.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that story. That's so cool.
Nir, do you have a question for our panelists?
Yeah, hi, I do. So my question is to Gordon. I'm looking at LGBTQ representation in gaming. I've been in gaming for...
Mano, tem um cara dando risada ali em cima, mano. Pô, bicho. Não fecha a matraca, rapaz. Boca de mochila. Tá rindo até agora. Salve, Marcelo. O que tá rolando, mano? Uma reunião aqui, velho. Reunião aberta. A gente tá esperando alguma coisa. Oh, para de rir, nojento. Onde ele tá vendo graça ali, velho? Ô, bicho. Pelo menos, né? Galera, pra quem tá chegando aqui, essa é a conferência da Take-Two, mano. Né? A empresa aí responsável pela Rockstar, né? Tá por trás ali. E a gente tava esperando alguma coisa, algum anúncio de alguma novidade, né? 337 likes. Tamo bem. Tamo aqui se divertindo, esperando ainda. A gente dá risada, mas a gente realmente tá pé da vida. Ainda há uma pontinha de esperança. Para de rir, filho, pelo amor de Deus.
And just in this new recent history, have we begun to build the trust and value in each other so as to aggregate and to even acknowledge each other. Okay?
Ele tá rindo do chat. É verdade, Felipe. Deixa eu ver. Deixa eu ver como é que tá o chat, mano. 100 mil pessoas ainda, ó. O povo é fiel, mano. Obrigado, igual vocês. A galera é fiel aqui. Obrigado a todos que estão ainda comigo aqui, mano. Olha lá, mano, bugando, rapaz. Um nojento, rapaz.
To affinity, right? Like, right? To employee resource groups and corporate leaders like Tony existing, right? And we're moving.
Baixou o invisível ali no braço dele, rapaz.
And so in other technology areas, that path is further along, where it is like to say in the batter.
O cara tá em Nárnia, é foda, né?
Identity is a value, and there's customers, there's of course creators, there's of course business leaders and owners. You know,
é, mano, braço invisível. Esse é um bug que você faz nos trajes. No GTA tem como, mano. Você buga os trajes e fica sem braço, velho.
We are still generation 1. You even asking this question here. You are a wild pioneer. You are
é capaz de ainda falarem do GTA 6. Vou ficar até o final. Aí sim, sem nome. Obrigado, mano. Eu também vou ficar até o final, galera. A gente é brasileiro. A gente é brasileiro, galera. Então.
Okay. And then in communication with each other.
A gente não desiste, não. Vamos esperar, mano. Naldo, eu não estou suportando mais. Eu lembrei daquele meme do Pastor Valdomiro, né, mano?
At any time, or you can reach out to me directly on Twitter, Gordon Bellamy. Wherever you may be on or off your path as an LGBTQIA person or an ally.
Alguém muta o CJ lá, por favor. Ô, Leis, calma, chefe. Tô aqui por causa do Mike. Não é nem pelo jogo. Valeu, cara. Cara de chibata. Obrigado pelo apoio, mano.
You don't have to be a member to care. Okay? You don't gotta be a member to say this is an important issue. And in fact, a lot of the
Luiz Eduardo, salve Luiz. Luiz, o grupo no Zap tá cheio, mano.
Hey, you don't have to do all the work, right? You know how to push the rock that's sitting on you. We're going to help you push that rock.
Quando é o final?
It's on you. It's not on me, but I can help push.
Estamos esperando, meu querido. A gente não sabe ainda quando é o fim, mas o fim não tá muito longe não, mano. Já foi o quê? 15, 25, 35, 45, 55. Vai pra 40 minutos, mano, já. Vai pra 40 minutos de... Até que passou rápido esses 40 minutos, galera.
I can, tell you more. And anyone else there who's watching, we can tell you more in greater detail.
Gordon, I know your company.
Monta ele lá, minha filha, pelo amor de Deus.
Oh,
talk about some of the activities.
Tá me ouvindo?
Sure. So we have most of our content now.
Vazou que a reunião só termina dia 6, não. Deus livre.
Our community service that we do with Take-Two is streaming. So we stream front page of Twitch and we bring it to YouTube, content around equity, inclusion, belonging. And not just LGBT, we just had our second indigenous.
Se passaram trailer de 30 segundos no final, eu tô feliz.
You know what? Indigenous creation has always been here. Always been here.
O David Jones está assistindo ainda? Cadê o menino que foi banido? O arquiteto, o David Jones está assistindo ainda? Velho. O arquiteto foi lá, mano, bisbilhotar o chat, foi banido, né?
In our executive suites, like Dr. Liggins, right? These people need to be cultivated as well, right?
Isso daí nem deve ser live, deve ser reunião gravada. É, pode ser, mano. Não, eu quero ver depois do David Jones, mano. Dá até pra fazer um react do David Jones.
Tune in, front page of Twitch. It's going to be a mood.
Mike, a apresentação de outra empresa já é 3:10. Qual que é que vai ser, ô Jonathan?
One more question, so let's go for it. Who's got their last burning question for our panelists?
Oh, I have several questions.
Burn.
one. We'll just speak. I have to come from the affinity group, ERG, BRG perspective. So, Gordon, thank you for touching on that.
Ele me baniu agora, o que eu vou fazer da minha vida? Fica comigo, bebê! Fica comigo, bebê!
A member of an ERG as well as a leader of an ERG. What advice would you give ERGs, affinity groups, BRGs that are either just starting out or those that are established in
Acho que ele tá esperando o anúncio do GTA. É, deve estar, mano. David Jones deve estar igual nós aqui. Mystical Games. Ah, não conheço, Jonathan.
Also, I mean, to add to that, I think the something that a few of us have touched on earlier is an old adage from the business world: you can't manage what you can't measure. If you don't have a way to see how your
galera do David Jones lá é muito sem noção.
Over a continuum, you're kind of just going, well, I think something's working.
Sérgio, o David Jones, eu acompanho os vídeos dele, as lives dele, eu não acompanho não, mano, então... Ele tem os fãs dele, né, mano, a galera lá, então. Mas eu gosto das críticas dele, mano, ele é bem sincerão, mano. Por isso que eu tô curioso pra ver. Eu já até imagino a thumbnail do vídeo dele, mano, sobre a Take-Two.
But we also recognize the fact that the partner and partners that we're working with
6,5 tem a da Capcom, a da Capcom vai ser top. A da Capcom vai ser top, eu acredito, né? 353 likes, tamo bem, galera.
What we're doing is having an impact on our objectives and rewarding that partner or those partners for that investment and for that support. That's really key to building a positive feedback loop around investing in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah. Yeah, what Jim
Essa é uma excelente hora pro Gavin aparecer, mano.
God, if you could move that needle like 0.2%, anything, you can't get cut. You can't get cut then, right? There's no way, no one can say budget's tight when you're moving that needle 0.2%, right?
No, the scale at which we all operate, it's
galera, quem acompanha os games sabe quem é a Take-Two, né? Então, mano, por isso que a live tá bombando, né, mano? Vamos ver se caiu a audiência. 99. Quando eu abri a live, tava bem baixa a audiência, mano. Mas todo mundo conhece a Take-Two, então todo mundo espera alguma coisa, né, mano? Não adianta, galera, é assim, mano. Falou alguma coisa sobre Red Dead? Não.
People get excited. It worked. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's why the Lawson Fund is what it is. It's an endowment because we want to see it have an impact in the
o coroa na esquerda tá meio de saco cheio.
And support students for decades to come. Not just have it be this fiscal year, what can we do?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
One more thing, just to let it go, is just keep saying black out loud. Right? Let's get back to black is beautiful.
Tio Phil de maluco do pedaço. Pô, mano. Caramba, galera.
And black is beautiful. And so
o tiozão ali da esquerda tá tancando, não. Não, não reparei o tiozão, não. É que eu tô olhando pro chat. Calma aí, galera. Vou prestar mais atenção. Eu sei que esse daí, ó, o Gordon, ele tá bem animado. É o Nin, né? O Nin que não tá tancando.
Good question. We've got time for more. What else do we have?
Não, ninguém quer falar mais nada, não.
All right, I'll go if we have time for more. Layla, how have you
360 likes.
Actually connect with the people in the community to bring awareness for your programs? Like, how do you actually gather people, to participate, and especially like in the very beginning?
Só esse nojento que fala.
Oh my gosh! So the first camp in 2014, we literally like barged into a maker fair with flyers, and we were just going around and being like, you look like you would.
Rolou alguma coisa além de nada? Bruno Sage. Não, ainda não. Estamos esperando, Bruno.
But I think it's
esperando, mano.
Primarily been word of mouth originally, but then when we ended up partnering with the game studios and game companies, that really helped elevate the program and the PR. I think Susanna touched on that. It's like it actually legitimized us and then kind of made us really cool. Like, hey, you can go make games at these game studios. You can actually make a game at Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, Take-Two. You can go into their offices, meet the developers, and make these games. And I think that
depois de ver esses caras, eu nunca mais vou reclamar de um chroma key. Nenhum. Não, mas isso aí eu acho que não é, mano, é algo proposital, galera.
A lot of our teachers end up being college students themselves, and they come back and they'll say things like, I wish this program existed when I was younger. It sucks I couldn't go to it, but at least I get to be a part of it and give back back to the kids. And then same thing for mentors and speakers. There's so much interest in wanting to give back and wanting to
370 likes, hein? Será que a gente pega 400, galera? Obrigado a todos aí pela presença, pela audiência. 3 da tarde. 45 minutos de conferência. Estamos chegando nos acréscimos, galera.
Us telling people that, hey, this is important, pay attention, and look at what we're doing. So yeah, I would say it's been very organic, and really the tide is turning.
É chroma key sem chroma key.
We're building on the industry that we have, but we're also building a new part of the industry together. So it's really exciting.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Layla. And thank you to our panelists. You guys have been very inspirational, very thought-provoking, and have left us with a lot of great tidbits to take away, to take back
Thank
to
you
our
so
corporations
much.
and our respective organizations to really make a deliberate impact in our community that we're building and this whole world of diversity and equity and inclusion in the video game industry. So thank you all. Thank you, the viewers, for joining, and have fun at the virtual E3 conference.
I think ever since Mega Man X, I've just loved the sort of 8-bit, 16-bit pixel art style. As an artist, I just kind of fell in love with that aesthetic.
Number 1, Mega Man X, favorite game of all time. Whenever somebody asks me the deserted on an island question, Mega Man X is the game.
I would say Tomb Raider. Lara Croft is the reason why I started to become really adventurous in my own life and wanted to be as intelligent and curious and brave as her.
Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I feel like that was the first video game that I've ever played where I've seen so many black people in one game and felt like, oh my gosh, my people. You got the Isley Brothers playing on the radio? Like, oh yes, this is where I need to be.
Parappa the Rapper on PlayStation. Man, bring that back, PlayStation. Parappa got more bars than half the industry right now. So I recommend that you all go check it out because it's one of my favorites.
I think it might be Apex Legends. And I know, the thing you're most excited about is the thing that you've just done. But truly, I have been waiting my entire life to play a character like Valk. And yeah, it's changed my life.
My favorite game is, without question, absolutely League of Legends. It's been like a decade since release, and it's still just at the top of the charts, and it's where I go with all my friends and hang out. It's my go-to.
That was the first female I actually ever seen play video games. It was my mother, and she loved 007, and we would all play, me, my brother, my mother, and my dad, and we would just go crazy in that game, have game nights and everything.
Lion King.
Acabamos de perder 45 minutos das nossas vidas. Calma, chefe.
That was hard.
I've said it many times. TV should have his own segment. Every time he's on camera, I'm just cracking up. Love him. Anyway, welcome back to E3 2021. Do not forget to check out e3expo.com/shop for your E3 2021 needs.
Look like this. Don't you want to look like this, young man?
You want to look just like me?
You want to look like a schlub like me?
E aí, gurizada? Velho? Meu Deus, galera. Vocês aprenderam alguma palavra em inglês aí? Galera, acabou então. 385 likes, 3 e 4 da tarde. Bom, galera, eu sei que vocês queriam, né? Mas eu também queria, não veio nada do nosso interesse. Eu só tenho a agradecer a presença de todos vocês, mano. Foi incrível aí a audiência. Infelizmente não teve nada. Amanhã tem mais GTA aí. Amanhã tem mais Red Dead aí. Amanhã atualiza, terça-feira. Lembrando, galera, amanhã eu não vou conseguir abrir live. O meu filho tem cirurgia marcada amanhã para as 7 da manhã. Ele vai ficar internado 2 dias e eu vou ter que estar lá junto com ele, né? Ele também, a gente vai ter que dar entrada no hospital, acho que 5 da manhã. Então a gente vai sair daqui hoje às 3 da manhã de casa. E quem não conhece meu Instagram, passa lá, vou notificar vocês tudo sobre o que está acontecendo com ele, com a cirurgia dele. Eu vou me ausentar por esses dias. E, cara, obrigado pelo apoio de vocês aí durante esses dias. Obrigado a todo mundo que fez donate lá no Pix. Isso vai me ajudar demais a ficar esses dias lá no hospital. Obrigado pelo apoio, galera. E é isso, mano. Não veio nada. 389 likes. Eu vou encerrar por hoje. Eu tenho que fazer os procedimentos finais aqui pra cirurgia. Tenho que pegar ele na escola. E é isso, galera. Até quinta-feira ou sexta-feira, se Deus quiser. Eu deixo aqui pra vocês aquele beijo no coração de todos vocês. Fiquem bem, fiquem em paz. E até a próxima. Tchau, galera. Valeu.